So today we thought we would have an AR8 theme for our custom boot builder. Now we have just released our rugged African Trooper along with Rose Anvil, so please go and have a look at his channel. Look how we've put that boot together. It is currently in stock and available for you guys to order, whereas these boots in front of me are obviously all custom built, come with premium charges, and unfortunately our custom boot builder is closed for the year until we reopen in 2025. But today we've got an interesting bunch and some interesting topics that we're going to chat on with the weights of these boots in front of me that you'll find really surprising. So let's get into it and start with this boot here, which is going all the way to Florida to a chap named Justin. Okay, so let's start with this boot from top to bottom. You can see here Justin's gone for a pull loop on the back. It's got our khaki rough out and our Houston green smooth out, which with some time and wear is going to add for some great patina and tie in quite nicely. Now one thing he's gone for is our polyester woven midsole. So this boot is nice and light and he combines that with a steel toe cap. Now steel toe cap with full leather midsole makes this boot quite heavy. That combined with our JG lug sole makes this one really durable and I would say a very protective to weight ratio boot, which is probably going to go down quite nicely down there in Florida, especially with the hotter weather, while at the same time in the winter months still be a great all-round boot. So this boot, steel toe cap, going to give you the protection, going to age really nicely and has a really good weight to it without going for that full leather midsole. Next up, we've got a very similar boot to the one we have just discussed. The major difference obviously being the quarters, opting for the rough out Houston green and Vampin toe cap, and the whole boot is the rough out material, which with time and wear going to smooth out a little bit. If a little bit of leather balm or something's added to this boot, it's also going to add to that whole patina and bring out some of the oils that we have in our Houston green leather. Now the biggest change between these two boots is that this boot has a steel toe cap, just like the boot we have just chatted on, but this boot has the full leather midsole and our JG lug sole. So like for like, this boot is almost the exact same boot. In terms of size wise, this boot's only one size bigger, being 11.5, whereas this boot is a 10.5. And here's the interesting fact, that this boot here with the full leather midsole is 500 grams heavier than this boot here. So here you're carrying quite a bit of extra weight. Yes, it is one size up, so the slight bits of extra leather are going to add to the effect. But here you go, these two boots, when you put it on your feet, straight out there's going to be that difference, the weight difference that you're going to feel. Now the benefit of this is that this boot is obviously going to take some time to break in. Being a full leather midsole, it's going to be extremely rugged. If you have a look at Rose Anvil's video where he cuts the rugged African Trooper in half, our midsole ranks in the top 5 boots of puncture resistance of all the boots that he's tested. So this is one seriously rugged option when you get our 8-inch boots with the full leather midsole. So this boot is off to Cicero, Illinois. We're now off to Boiling Springs, South Carolina, and with a steel toe cap Barefoot AR8 boot. So now we have got almost one of every kind in front of us with the leather midsole options. Now recently we released a video comparing rugged African Trooper, AR8 and our Barefoot boots. So if you want to go and have a closer look at the differences between them, we'll put links to that video below. But now onto this very interesting boot, and he has opted for the quarters to be in one of our newer leathers, the Bronco. Now this leather has a serious amount of pull up in it. I'm just going to bend the boot there, where you can see the oils in the leather that pull through very nicely. And as I've mentioned, our Houston green has natural oils in it as well. So with time and wear, they are going to come through the rough out that he's opted for here. Now, being a steel toe cap boot and an 8-inch having this pull loop, this makes it easier to get the boot on and off. The boot has a steel toe cap, so we use this on our STC last, so it is of a slightly wider fit, and many of you do enjoy the STC last. The boot is then, as with all our Barefoot boots, has the leather midsole, and then our Anvil outsole in our black rubber. So here we go, we've got Barefoot spec, we've got going all in with the full leather midsole, And then we've got the polyester woven midsoles. And now we're just going to touch on the weights between these three so that you can get an idea of the differences. This boot here is a size 9, this boot here is a size 11.5, and this boot is a 10.5. Now we're going to touch on the weight difference between these three boots. They're all very similar in look and in construction, with the major differences being the midsole and the outsole options. So let's start with the lightest option, and that is naturally going to be the Barefoot spec. So this as a pair comes in at 1.8 kgs. Now this is for a size 9, US size 9. Now let's go on to the next boot. This is a US size 10.5, and this boot comes in at 2.2 kgs. So a 400 gram difference just by adding this slightly more lug outsole. But the reason this boot isn't nearly as heavy as this boot is because of the polyester woven midsole. So here we've got 1.8 kgs for the pair, 2.2 kgs for this pair, and the pair in the middle here, we have a total of 2.6 kgs, so another 400 gram difference. So if you go from Barefoot to here, you can imagine that swing from one to the other. So now the outlier of our batch today, and that is another AR8 boot, but a completely different spec to some of the ones we've just chatted on here. So the biggest difference here is there's no thermoplastic toe puff at all, but he's gone for the leather toe cap for some added support. Now this boot is a US size 14 with our Kalahari sole. So this boot with all its leather comes in at 2.8 kgs, so 200 grams heavier than this boot over here. So even without a steel toe cap, this boot still weighs in a lot heavier. Now the major difference here is because of our Kalahari outsole. Now this is one chunk of rubber that is designed to not gather any mud with the smooth design, and because of that it is quite a firm feeling sole underfoot and will require some break-in. Now this is quite a natural and good looking boot here, which has been finished off with the olive stitching, which really pops together with our green shoelaces. Our freak leather is obviously always eye-catching, and with time and wear it does darken up quite nicely and going to tie in well with the rest of the boot. So here, a really good looking boot for quite a big chap, and quite importantly is that this boot is going all the way to Australia. So these three here finding their way to America, and this one to the other side of the world, Australia. So this is 4 pairs of our custom-made AR8 boots. There are stock items on various websites if you want to try these specs out. You know, once you get to know the Gym Green brand and what we are about, you can then get bold and brave and venture into some of these more creative designs. So thanks very much for watching, and thanks for the support.